Welcome to Aunties from the Golden West. I'm Singran, a guest today, and today we'll be talking about our experience as three gay women in our society.
Hello, and welcome to Aunties from the Golden West. Today we will be discussing gay issues, mainly our own, as two gay women who have been together for nearly 40 years and are enjoying our time together more and more every day. For our conversation today, when we use the word gay, we are referring inclusively to all LGBTQ plus people. That is, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer. And the plus sign in our mind stands for allowing people to define themselves and their identity for themselves as each person wishes.
I'm Diane Kaiser, and I'm a 77-year-old Caucasian woman who lives in Sacramento, California. I am a lesbian and have lived with my partner, Teresa, who you just heard from, my spouse, since 2008. Thank God for that Supreme Court decision. And I hold a PhD in public health policy management.
And I'm Teresa Bosher, Diane's spouse, and a 66-year-old Caucasian woman as well. And of course, I too live in Sacramento, and I'm a lesbian. I also hold a Juris Doctorate and practiced law with my parents before becoming involved in public health policy management.
Yeah, thank you for having me here, inviting me over.
It's our pleasure, Sinran.
My name is Singran Dhaliwal, and if you can't tell from the name, I'm Chinese. I lived my first 10 years in China, and I came here in Davis, and have been around Sacramento since then, really, aside from school. And my husband is Indian, also Asian. So when we study neuroscience and public health,
Yes.
we're a young couple. I'm 31, and we have two children. So representing some of the parenting voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now that we've introduced ourselves, let me begin by saying this is probably one of the most difficult segments, most challenging than we have ever tried to do on Community Global Internet Radio. And the Aunties of the Golden West usually deal with issues that are just not so important. And that doesn't mean that the Moomins are not important, but this one is major for us. And we actually spent some time struggling with the idea that do we really want to go before microphones and talk about our experiences as older gay women? And we thought about it. We realized it was a challenge, but here we are, and we're glad to be here. So, we as older queer women realize that where we live has made a big difference for us. I mean, that's why many people live in California. People wonder, why are there 40 million of you living in one state? Well, for many of us, there's a great atmosphere, and there is an atmosphere of liberality and progression. California is entrepreneurial in so many ways, and one of them has been really dealing with civil rights, and I must say in particular, gay rights. So we are here in Sacramento, and it's been a great 40 years, and the fact that we are white, even in California, in the United States, in the Western world, has made a big difference. There are still countries in the world that are deeply dealing with social change and civil rights. And this is kind of an outreach to those countries and to the parents in those countries.
It sure is. And I want to second your point that we want to acknowledge our privilege as white women, even as white lesbians. At this time, in this place, and that is North America in the 21st century, being white is still a form of currency. And we want everyone to know that we recognize that we don't experience the same challenges that gay and queer people of color suffer, even in this country. So we do want to acknowledge that. And we want to speak to parents all over the globe, but especially parents of gay children. We believe people should do what their hearts and souls guide them to do, because we believe both heart and soul are involved in what we do as human beings. We want to speak out because we haven't really spoken out before, and we have ridden on the shoulders of others. And we wanted to reveal that there are gay people everywhere, doing many interesting things and living happy lives. We know some personally, namely ourselves.
So, for the past nearly 40 years, speaking for myself, Diane, I have really had rare life bumps. I've had a pretty easy road. And I've been fortunate. My bumps came earlier in life. I can't say that Teresa's and my lives together, or our lives as individuals, have been totally without change, because together we have and are facing the usual life challenges, including deaths of family members and friends, and making adjustments to aging, which includes winding down our careers, at least a bit. But at each step, we are finding new, even improved interests, such as internet radio, and our voices to try to make things just a little bit better for those who follow.
There are a few things that have helped our relationship along the way. Most importantly are our shared core values. These include valuing education, recognizing that society is evolving, and believing that although money and resources are needed to live, money doesn't need to be worshipped or hoarded.
Yeah, it's true, Teresa. And for me, it has been nearly 4 decades of an all-around growing and learning experience with you. There have been some hilarious moments. I was an only child. Teresa has 8 siblings, and now I have a huge variety of multi-generational in-laws, which make both camping trips and dinner parties fascinating. Such as our newest experience with our 5 and 6-year-old grand-nephew and niece, who enthusiastically eat dim sum and exclaim, "Is this Thanksgiving? This is actually better than Thanksgiving." Great moments. There have also been some times of shared grief, as I said, in the passing of parents and dear friends. And please don't think that we've never shared or participated in an argument, because we have. We don't that much, but we do. When you have 2 strong women together, my gosh, we can actually find that we have different opinions on certain subjects. But all in all, there's a growing awareness in both of us how much ego can cast a negative shadow on anything, how heavy energy drains us and light energy lifts us. We have and are learning the importance of actively compromising and solving things cooperatively.
Indeed, Diane, indeed. Much of what we are saying is true in all relationships: straight, gay, bi, trans, asexual, and all forms of sexual expression or none at all. Even platonic friends navigate through many experiences in relationships. We have also been aware that people go through phases in their lives. During much of Diane's and my earlier lives, in our 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, we've shared all of those decades, we were much more exterior than we are today. In a word, we have become more reflective. As we mature, let's just say it, as we age, we are now becoming a bit more interior, focusing on developing our inner selves more. And we consider ourselves extremely fortunate to have someone with whom to share that experience. Many of our core values have meshed well. Our love of learning, travel, human unity, racial integration, harmony, and our commitment to our own and each other's growth have bound us together.
So today, things are moving along well. But what about our journey to reach this moment? Mine was bumpy and rocky. Well, first let me say, I'm 10 years older than Teresa. That has some influence because a lot happened in those 10 years, especially in the 1960s and 70s. Whereas Teresa's parents worried she might become a hitchhiking hippie. My parents worried that I might not learn to speed type, or worse yet, that I might become Catholic. Actually, both happened to a certain degree. Even though I was raised in one of the most progressive regions in the United States, the San Francisco Bay Area, the 1950s were not kind to people who were even a smidgen different. So entertaining a lot of thoughts about living an entirely different type of life in the 1950s was, well, kind of like maybe a Mormon woman wishing she could join the priesthood. The conventions of the time said no, secretly and not so secretly, just too shameful to even think about. But I forged my own secret path anyway.
So, Diane, I am so happy that you forged your own path. My earlier experiences didn't quite reach the degree of secrecy that you had to experience, because those 10 years you mentioned, they made a huge difference in American society.
It really did, Teresa. I mean, it was something that I was almost living at a different time than you lived in.
Yeah. The 60s and 70s were times of open, unashamed change. The atmosphere was different, as they were the times that America made the most initial progress for many of the social change movements that we're still experiencing today and trying to explore today. In particular, civil rights movements addressing race, gender, and sexual orientation and identity. All of that started in the late 60s and on into the 70s. And it was literally like breaking down doors.
Right. Those were our decades of action.
Yeah. And for the first time, people were actually talking about gay people with at least some level of neutrality or, golly, even a little bit of respect. And there wasn't always that finishing phrase when people earlier had talked about gay people, when they would say, "and may they repent or die."
Yes.
I mean, that was absolutely the approach to gay people. And when I was young and out marching and so on, we were scared, even as we marched the streets. I mean, we knew we still were face to face with bigots and with divisive and hurtful political decisions that did not then and do not now promote America's best, the collaborative spirit towards universal success. But the deal is that now, as gay people, we know that the problem is with the bigots,
Right.
not with us who were born gay.
Well, that's the big aha, Teresa. Now I know why I was so anxious to tell everyone my inner thoughts about my energy and sensual attraction to women. Teresa hit it on the head, and I tried not to be hit on the head or actually give others, in particular bigots, any rope to hang me. So I was kind of laying low, but was monitoring the horizon. Because of my involvement in the women's movement, and I really kept myself totally busy working, organizing, going to college and traveling, I'm not saying that I actually was able to put down my feelings, but at least I was sublimating them in some ways to be able to continue my life and doing something maybe progressive and helpful to myself, but also to watch everything that was around me. And boy, I was noticing some real changes. So I still kind of kept myself under wraps. There were certain subjects to me that were taboo, and I did not feel comfortable discussing same-sex relationships, at least at that time. I believed that I needed to sidestep, hide, duck, and just really stuff my feelings about certain people, which of course, I mean, those feelings were about women, and my unchanging attraction to women. I still tried dating boys. I know I've told you about this many times, and got married to a man who I liked and respected, still do. Mm-hmm. But it simply wasn't what was written on my psycho-spiritual slate. Really, Teresa, even after experiencing closeness with a woman, when I was out and about, I was not really out and about, to be totally truthful. I was in and out of the closet more often than my pajamas. Not terribly proud of this, in fact, not at all, but personal truth does eventually make one freer, and conditions and feelings about the issues have changed so enormously. I mean, sexual orientation can be discussed in depth today.
Yeah, there's just no question.
It was just absolutely clammed down. You just never heard, or except rumors about someone.
Oh, that could destroy somebody's career.
Oh, absolutely. And, it made headlines in the San Francisco Chronicle when Johnny Mathis, the famous singer, was beaten up in Redwood City. And it was attributed to his coming gayness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Well, so we also have our dear friend and colleague here with us.
Hello.
And Sinran, we don't want to throw this on you, but you are possibly representing a younger demographic.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so what do you think about what you've heard? In your opinion, this whole thing about times changing, does that resonate with you?
Yeah.
And what do you think?
Absolutely, Teresa. And first of all, it's so great hearing about your experiences and reflecting on how different it has been for me as somebody that I would say is bi, but somewhere in the spectrum, but met my husband early when I was 19 in college in UCLA. So in somewhat of a privileged situation, right? And there was really never friction. And as an Asian woman in a heterosexual relationship, I passed all the time as just a great ally. So it's nice to also have a space here with you and just talking from an Asian perspective and from being a young person with a family, but also a great, part of this community. And you know what I heard that ties it all together is that love is hard enough to find. It really is.
Yes.
And ultimately, we hope that those we hold dear, whether they be our children, our family, our friends, they find this beautiful thing with one another so that they can build their lives together and work out the rest of their identity that they will grow into.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So if we're talking to some concerned parents that may be listening out there, maybe I can offer this. Life is full of challenges, sexual orientation aside. Wherever you lay on the spectrum, life already have challenges. And similarly, young folks my age, I'm in my 30s, a lot of them choose not to have children, gay or not gay. And this is a growing trend, not just in U.S. I would say there are Asian countries out there, European countries out there that's leading this trend. So those worries are universal. On the flip side, having family with children is also becoming more possible for same-sex couples in so many ways, right? And not being straight is showing up less and less as a deviation from the norm. It shouldn't be. Yeah. In reality, if you think about more ancient histories in the East, even being gay or being in this norm of being straight, it wasn't a thing.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
It's more recently we clamped down a little bit. So, we just as a society need to embrace what we have now and grow into it. And how have we done that? You guys spoke on it. The biggest factor is visibility.
Yep.
Going past acceptance and going to embracing this.
Yeah.
And less crazy gender role, really.
Yeah. Right.
It can start anywhere from, just K-pop, loving the fashion, and just knowing like you don't have to stop whatever you're doing with your career and be a housewife. There's all kinds of ways this is showing up. And this LGBTQ pride. when you're marching out there now, most people don't feel fear. They feel
Right,
jubilant,
exactly.
right?
That's
They're
right.
happy.
That's right.
Yes.
They're
That's
part
right.
of something.
It's
They-
celebratory.
They're doing
Yes.
something. Absolutely. And seeing it in mainstream culture, your idols on TV, your favorite TV shows, it's providing that visibility of people living lives and doing great, having a great time.
Yeah.
Doing a great job, having a great time. Don't worry about it. And you see it in celebrities and politicians now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's amazing when we are, Teresa and I are very interested in Janelle Monáe, who is very much our junior, and Queen Latifah. I mean, some of these people are so fabulous that I just happened to see Queen Latifah the other night on Roots. Her family had a fabulous story coming to America. So, I mean, there are things that we're hearing about people and learning about people that have made such a difference. Yeah.
And those are two good examples of well-known women who are very open about saying they find themselves not, as you put it, not in one space on the spectrum.
Right.
They're exploring the spectrum.
Right.
Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So we're making it more part of normal, right?
Yeah.
And so rather than being concerned, if someone came out to you or just let you in a little bit more on their identity, about their orientation, help them learn to find love. If you're a parent out there, teach them how to recognize when it is that they found a healthy relationship. That's important.
Yes.
Build on that shared values that you both talked about that brought you together and like Teresa and like Diane, help them thrive and live a richer life together. And for 40 years, you've been doing this every day and
Yeah.
getting better and showing other people it
We've
works
hardly noticed it.
great for us. Basically, don't freeze up. Whether you're the person sharing more about yourself or you're learning more about somebody that's important to you. Don't freeze up. Don't let the stereotypes out there and other people's prejudices get in the way of you knowing and supporting someone that's dear to you.
Yeah.
So that's my spiel.
Well,
Not an expert,
We love your
but
sanity.
excellent,
Yeah.
Oh,
an excellent observer of life.
Yes,
Yeah.
you are an
We
excellent
really
observer.
appreciate your comments, Sinran. And, really beginning with the 60s and 70s was such a change that made it possible for us today to openly participate in some of the things that you just mentioned. I mean, we've got now gay events. We have political candidates that we support, and every once in a while, we actually vote for a gay or lesbian political candidate. I mean, when I was growing up in the late 50s and early 60s, this would have been the most absolute ridiculous thought to think that there would be a gay person ever in any form of government. And today, I don't want to say it's become de rigueur, but it's become really fairly commonplace. So there have been so many changes.
And can I comment, for the political sphere too, they're not a token of the LGBTQ community, right? They're actually a full-blown politician with a full array of issues they're representing, and it just so happens they're accepting of
Yeah.
this community they're also part of. So I think that's a huge difference to not also be tokenized in your craft.
That's right. That's right. And, the fact that these changes have occurred has made it absolutely possible for a person like me to finally identify with what I've been all along. And so this has really kind of eased my journey and path. There are so many types of people in the world, don't you think? And we identify them by race, religion, sexual orientation, ethnic groups, and many other ways we begin to categorize people or categorize others. Efforts that have tried to divide us rather than unify, they attempt to make people fearful and apprehensive. And those who are different than themselves, well, actually turn their hatred and fear and negativity onto others. And they diminish the entire human race by doing that. And so we are very conscious of what's going on with these divisions. In fact, America has experienced some divisions recently, and we know how that felt. It didn't feel good for us, and it didn't feel good for others. So these negative outlooks can result from external influences and factors such as childhood experiences of being abused, misled, manipulated, mistreated, and this is what people carry with them when they've had these types of childhood experiences. Oftentimes, that type of treatment can turn into fear and hatred of others. And this is probably one of the least healthy things going on in our society today. Because we actually are attuned, inwardly we're attuned to traits like humility, sincerity, kindness, love. These are noticed, shared, and admired. I mean, even after some of our recent experiences here in America and elsewhere, it's still true. Our lives, our families, and careers can be either uplifted or demeaned. And depending on whether we are fearful or whether we appreciate differences. And we're into appreciating differences.
And, you know, you make a really good point, and we need to note that although we say, hey, everything really got better after the 60s and 70s, right now, look what's happening with all the anti-trans legislation
Yes.
that's happening in these states that where you talked about it, Diane, that we innately should be able to love one another, and yet they are targeting, the bigots are targeting kids. Trans kids.
yeah.
I mean, how mean can you get?
Exactly. You know, if some of these people who were targeting actually turned the target and examined themselves, boy, that would go a long way. But they're not there yet.
Right. So we have to raise our voices. Diane, you said something interesting too about each person in any demographic is different than others in the same demographic. Some lesbians, and gay men spend time at gay bars. And some have actually never been to a gay bar. And there are gay rodeos and gay nights at Disneyland. I mean, some people really enjoy these kind of interactions in these events. And some people, it's just not their bag, as we'd say
Exactly.
in the 60s. You can't paint everyone with a one-size-fits-all in any category of humanity. And basically, what we're saying, really all that we're really saying is loving gay children is natural. It's right, and it's happening more and more across the whole planet. Our message really is simple. It's simply that your gay children can be successful, well-educated, well-liked, and happy, and be gay at the same time. Being gay does not diminish any of these life opportunities. But please know that gay children, like all your children, need and want the love and approval of their parents. If they have to live authentically without that love or approval, they will. But to deny them your emotional support simply because they are gay will needlessly make their lives more difficult.
That's true.
That's all it does.
Yep, you see it. Yep.
Yeah. And it makes your life as a parent less fulfilling as you miss out on the highs and the lows, the wins and the losses, all the glorious human challenges in between that they will experience as they travel their own life path.
You know, everything you say really, I think, resonates with us because, you know, we've heard this. We continue to try to push this message, and it's an important one because I was actually, when I talked earlier about having a few early bumps in my life, mine came that my parents were older when I was born. They were 50, and by the time I was 33, I was an orphan. And my family, I mean, usually you think, oh my God, well, she's an adult. But even having an entire family pass away and they were all older, I was like an orphan. That was a kind of a big thing for me. But then I think that what you said about the success of gay children, I was really lucky. I came home once and talked to my mother, and I said, I think my friend Judy might be gay. And my mother said, so what? And that was like in 1962. And I thought, God, my mother just said, so what? I mean, I was having feelings myself. So it was kind of an interesting thing that, not that I was having her imprimatur on everything, but the fact that she said something like that, and
it made a difference.
It absolutely
Yeah.
made a difference, and kind of gave me a little bit of wiggle room,
Yeah.
and which I didn't take for years, but it did. It really left a wonderful feeling. So that's kind of, when we think about, and I don't want to go too deep into human evolution, but the fact that we are evolving as a species, that's important to, recognize that everything is a step toward human evolution. Sometimes we wonder, God, is this really evolving? But it does take a millennia for this to happen. And we don't want to develop too much patience in this particular area because we need the impetus and momentum that's needed for real social change. So the civil rights and social movements formed to hopefully accelerate the process of human evolution. And I think it has. So now, currently, we are in the midst of another rapidly changing world brought on by new factors like COVID-19, and refreshingly, the maturity and more expansive thinking and acceptance of the younger generations regarding race, gender, and sexual orientation. I can't thank you enough, Sinrin, for being here with us today and talking about these areas. And you're so relaxed about it, and it's like
I'm an open book.
Yes, she is, and it's been fabulous for us, I'll tell you. We need to be concentrating on the environment, and our compliments to the gay and millennial and Generation Xers and their straight, bi, and inclusively brothers and sisters who are facilitating love and acceptance of others instead of promoting hate and intolerance. So you guys, you youngers,
Me?
yes, you in particular, Sinrin, are nudging humanity in the right direction, and we thank you.
Yeah. And if I could, I really heard a few things in there about fear and the trauma that we bring with us as parents. I'm a young parent, so and how do we not let that hold us back, like us as society, right? By not transferring those traumas to our children. So the embracing versus accepting part is that I think is to not let your fear freeze you up with your children. To just embrace who they want to be and be there with them when they're finding out.
Oh, that's
whether it's like empowering them about environmental issues that they want to address in their future lives, their personal lives, whatever it is. Don't bring your own trauma with it. Bring your experiences, bring the lessons you learned, what worked.
Yes.
Yeah, we've never had that challenge of parenting.
Yeah.
So this is really great to hear, Sinrin.
Yeah. So much of it is like, I just want to know everything about these little children. They change all the time.
Yes.
They change all the time. But all those discoveries are just wonderful. And learning not to like bring my own fears, like, oh my God, if they did that, they're going to hurt. Like, but maybe they're more coordinated than I am.
Yeah.
So, safety is important, but also giving your children the room to become who they are,
Yes.
and not become you, So
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. Well, Diane, Sinrin, and I hope you have found this segment of Aunties from the Golden West unifying and maybe a bit elucidating about experiences of gay people in our lives. Both of the aunties and all our colleagues are looking forward to upcoming segments. For instance, we have plans to do hip-hop tutorials for elders. So we pose the question to you, do you want to learn what hip-hop may actually be saying? Well,
Yes.
we're going to explore that. So we'll find out.
It's going to be a first for some of us. We're quite excited, actually.
Stay tuned. And as always, we welcome our listeners' comments and questions to the Aunties from the Golden West. Send us an email at CalmUnityGlobal. So that's calm, like CALM, unity, and global, all one word. CalmUnityGlobal101 at gmail.com. Or visit us on Twitter. We also welcome translations made of this program into different languages if this would aid in understanding that to be gay is expressing love from our hearts and souls to other human beings and feeling comfortable with who we are. We hope you experience that as well. And thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you.